episode 15 of the Bithell Games Podcast. I'm Alexander Slawinski.
And I'm Mike Bithell.
Each week, we talk games, what it's like to make games, and the random stuff we don't generally find time to talk about because we are playing and or making games. We also try to have guests regularly on the show. And this week, we've got Julius Fondem, a young gentleman at the beginning of his career, fresh out of school, which is why we wanted him here.
Hi, everyone.
Some show notes quickly. Thanks to all our new subscribers and everything, all those fun things. And that's it. I just want to say thanks because you've been awesome, and we keep having more folks listening, and it's great, and the feedback has been awesome. So thank you all so much for that. And now we will move into talking about Mr. Julius.
Hello.
Why are you here?
That's not a very polite introduction.
It's like imposter syndrome kicks in. Like I don't know. I just don't know.
So a little bit of quick background. Actually, Mike, you give the background on Julius.
Well, just Julius is one of those people who I've run into at lots of events and had lots of chats with, and there's a certain number of people you see in the games industry. You see them at parties, you see them at shows, and they always seem to be kind of knowing what they're talking about and being very interesting. And no, that's been my experience with Julius. So you worked. I'm right in saying you did some work experience at Frozen Byte for a bit.
Yes, that is correct. In 2013.
Which is how I met you, I think. We talked. We did a promo with you guys.
Yeah. So when I was at Frozen Byte, the guys who made Trine 1, Trine 2, Shadowgrounds, and now they're working on Shadwin, I think. I was in charge of a promotional campaign called Huge Seal, which was we had a bunch of indies. I think over 20 different indies involved, and you could go to a website and choose five of their games and get discount coupons for Steam. And if you bought 3 games with those coupons, you got one random game that you didn't already own for free. And Mike was one of those people that was involved in this campaign, and I think I just cold called him an email basically saying, hey, we have this kind of campaign, would you be interested in taking part?
But you were always super professional, super friendly, and honestly, I assumed you were a veteran or something. And I meet you,
which I am not.
And you're a child. You're a
yes,
child.
I have my pacifier out like Google Gaga.
Exactly. And that makes you interesting. That's the kind of person that I find intriguing, and I thought it'd be fun to have you talk and chat with us a bit about your experience of, because both me and Alexander have been in industry for too long at this point. So it's always interesting to talk to people who've recently graduated, people who are just getting started on what's it like out there, what's it like as are you in your and where are you working now? What's the
Julius? I like to call us survivors.
We're survivors. Yeah.
We're survivors. You're not a survivor yet.
Not yet. Right now I'm working at Red Lynx, so part of Ubisoft. We're guys who made Trials Fusion, Trials Frontier. And it's been fun there for now. I'm part of also the Ubisoft graduate program, which is a program for people who have just graduated out of school within Ubisoft. So 1 year I'm at Red Lynx, then second year I'm at another Ubisoft studio abroad, and then I go back to Red Lynx.
Which is a really interesting program.
Yes, it is very, very interesting.
So let's take a moment and talk about that, because when I went back to school, it was actually recommended to me that I should apply for that program as well. So this is a legit thing that gives you a direct injection.
Very much a fast track, into the industry.
But I want to take one more quick moment here and have you talk a little bit about your background, because you have a really, really good American accent, which will fool people into thinking that you're an American.
I am not.
So let's just cover that quickly, just to make sure that we're covering our international bases here.
Okay, so I am Finnish. I'm born and raised in Finland. I've lived here my whole life. What am I, 26 now? And my mom is Finnish, but my dad is from Russia, and his dad was from Cameroon, and my grandmother is from Russia, so that's my international background.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to cover that because the issue is that sometimes, I've seen it with PewDiePie where folks are just like, oh, he's an American. It's like, no, he's absolutely not. He's really, really not. But if you grow up in Europe, you watch a lot of American television.
Yeah.
So even it's funny because my cousins, the cousins who are older than me, from Germany, all have British accents when they speak in English, and all the ones who are younger than me have American accents.
Interesting. Because in Finland, people will typically have maybe a bit more of a British accent, not like super strong, but more leaning towards British because that's the type of English that is taught in school here.
And rightly so. No, it's cool. It's fun to be part of a fading empire. It's good.
So Ubisoft.
A waning empire.
The waning empire.
So Ubisoft, yeah. I've been working now 8 months at Red Links as a project coordinator, and I can't talk about the project that I'm working on at the moment, but it's been very interesting. I liked it a lot. There's also mentorship part of the graduate program, so I have like a mentor in the studio who I have like lunch with every now and then, and get feedback from him. And there's more reviews than because normally employees have like a big yearly review and stuff, but in the program you have a bit more than just that.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and that's basically the gist of the graduate program. And it's so not.
Do you recommend that people
absolutely
should apply for this?
Absolutely, yes. But unfortunately, it closed like a month and a half ago or a couple of months ago for the next round. So I don't know if there's going to be around next year. Most likely there will be, but I'm not entirely sure. I don't run the program, so I don't know. And for the past 3 years now, it's been project managers and programmers.
Do other publishers do this?
Not that I know of. I haven't at least publicly heard of anything like this from other like big companies. And the cool thing is that it's not like you go there and you're kind of treated as like a graduate or some kind of intern. I'm just an employee there, and I work the same as everyone else does, and I get proper responsibilities and stuff like that. So I feel like it's a real thing, and it's not. I'm not doing it for free. I get a salary, and it's just been great. I really
how many people are you responsible getting their coffee?
0, because I don't drink coffee, so it's 0.
So you're not on the list. Oh yeah, well that's the rule, isn't it? I remember for like my first year in industry, like actively stopping drinking coffee because I knew that every time I went to get a coffee, I'd have to get 10 coffees, and I was just lazy. I just didn't want to do it for everyone. And but yeah, no, it's really cool, and it's really cool that companies like Ubisoft do this. It's a real shame that you have to point out that you're being paid as some kind of positive. Like, no, because that's not the norm, you know. It's a shame.
It is a shame. Do that. And because people ask me, like, because I went to some recruiting events where I talked about this, and people ask, so, like, is it a paid thing? I'm like, absolutely, it's a paid thing. It's a job. It's not like they would take you in and be like, well, work for us for free now and for a year. And it's like, no, of course not.
Yeah, but you're getting paid through experience.
Yeah, but no. Me and Alex don't have different views on internships. But it's a crazy number. There's a crazy number of like studios who do the unpaid internships, which is not my bag. I like the idea of paying people for doing jobs.
I don't prefer it, but I understand for some studios it's like a way of like mitigating costs, and I get it. I really do get it, especially for small indie studios where there's not a lot of money to go around it. To begin with, I understand, but like me living in Helsinki, like in the center, I need to get paid. Helsinki is not a cheap city to live in, or Finland in general is not cheap.
Absolutely. Yeah, but you chose to live there. You chose to live in an expensive place.
I love your tone of voice. You're like devil's advocate.
But I mean, this is the argument, right? That,
it is the argument. Yes,
you are being given access and being fast tracked.
Yes.
In whether it's your specific situation, or if you get a job at a studio. Or an internship at a studio, you're being fast tracked. And it's funny because I just watched 2 high level executives over the last couple of weeks put out on Twitter. We've got unpaid internships, like apply, work experience, the whole entire thing. And the immediate second I saw it, I was like, here it comes. And I just watched it, and
you got the popcorn out.
Yeah, it was just, like every response is like, why can't you pay people? Like, why aren't you paying them? And
it's bad when you're like, hey, come work for us for free. You'll get experience dollars.
Yeah. It's not.
It's
I'm a big believer, and we hire a lot of people straight out of uni, and I genuinely have had the conversation where people have been like surprised. So you want to pay me for doing work? It's like, yes, because it's work. And
to be clear, we have a policy. Like, our policy is people get paid. So like we absolutely recently had someone who was in an intern capacity with us, and it was like, here's what you're going to get paid. And they're like, oh, I'm getting paid? Like, yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, you're getting some money for your time.
It's a sad state of affairs that's not the norm.
Yeah.
But I'm interested in what the long-term goal is, Julius. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? No, but like, where are you headed? What's the plan? Like, what job do you see people doing that you want to have?
Michael, this is the games industry. If he plans more than 2 years, he's a fool.
That's very true from at least what I've already experienced as a student already, come this far. But yeah, at some point I would like to have my own studio to run, but when that is, I really don't know. It's not in the near future, I would say. Not in the next 5 years, maybe. I don't know. But I don't see it in the near future at some point. But for now, I would like to progress in like the production area, so go to be a producer in charge of a project. That would be like the next big goal, I guess, for me, which
very cool,
which will take time, and I know because I still need to learn a lot.
So you always do.
Genuinely, what does a producer role entail? Like, you're in the thick of it at a major publisher right now, but at different scales, like what does the producer job entail?
Okay, your mileage may vary a lot because producer role is very nebulous. I think in the industry it changes a lot. But I can start from like when I was studying, because I studied game production and business in university for 3.5 years, and there what that would entail is me being in charge of like 1 or 2 projects, seeing the project management for that. So I think we used Pivotal Tracker for that during that time, which is quite good for small teams. Some use Trello as well. Trello is also pretty neat. So just taking care of that, running a sprint process for the team, so having daily stand-ups, having sprint retros, sprint reviews, collecting all that data, communicating with different people.
And sprint process is where you have different sprints every 2 weeks approximately?
Approximately, yeah. It would vary, like with the student projects. Sometimes we have like 1, 2, 3 weeks. It would vary. But yeah, typically it's something like that. And yeah, and at the same time, I was also running the company within the university that the game students have there to publish the games. I was the CEO for 1 year, so that was also what I was doing during that time, answering emails, setting up agreements, stuff like that. So that's what I was doing. So
now this part is fascinating to me. So the university created a separate entity.
Well, not the university per se, actually. It was I think the students that were like 2 years ahead of me, or 3 years ahead of me, I think. They were looking to publish games, and they thought that, well, it would be easier if we just had this company within the university's like building that could take care of that, because you need to have like the agreements, legal stuff set up, whatnot. And if every student team starts doing that, it's a lot of time wasted for just getting the game out. So they did the great work of setting that whole company up, and then it kind of gets passed down to the next year of students every year. It kind of cycles.
Okay, so it is a company outside of. So I'm guessing, for starters, your university does not have a policy where all creative endeavors are owned by the university.
No, we do not. I don't think any, at least the game universities in Finland have that. I haven't heard anything about that.
Okay, because that can be wildly different depending on your university.
Yeah.
So you guys created a separate entity.
Yes.
That is.
I wasn't part of creating it. I don't want to take credit for where I didn't.
So it was passed down to you.
Yes. Well, the way that it happened was that the producer students of the previous year sat me and the 3 other producer students down, and they were like, well, we need a new CEO for this company, and then people who will run it. And I was like, I could be a CEO. Like, I don't know anything, but I want to try. I want to learn. And then I kind of put myself in the position where they were like, okay, sure. and then they're like, here's stuff for you to do, and I'm like, what? I don't know what I'm doing, and then bumbling through it somehow, asking a lot of questions.
So how many titles were produced during your tenure as CEO?
I really don't remember. Like, I have no remember. I don't remember at all. It was maybe some 10 something, because it's like student teams.
So like a decent amount.
A decent amount, yeah. But it was mostly me setting up like agreements for them. I wasn't involved in their game development per se. I was more involved.
And what platforms do these go out on? Like itch.io? Where does it go?
iOS and Android mostly when I was doing that stuff. So I would be the one like publishing their stuff, but mostly Android, and actually the Windows Phone store, because that was a big thing at our school at that time. We were doing Windows Phone games a lot because we used XNA. At least our class did. It was before our school started using Unity, which was like a few years later.
There was that 2 or 3 year gap, wasn't there, where XNA was in every school?
And it made sense at that time.
Oh no, it made perfect sense.
It totally made sense. So yeah, it was Windows Phone games a lot, and then some Android and a few iOS games. Yeah, it's cool taking this trip down memory lane because I hadn't really thought about that in a while.
So what was it? So moving forward, what was it like at Frozen Byte? So we know you did that specific deal. Was that your core focus, or were you doing other things while you were there?
At Frozen Byte, I wasn't a producer per se. My title was marketing developer, so I was doing marketing. And one of the big gigs was the PS4 launch of Trine 2, because that came out for the launch of PS4. And then the other one was Huge Seal, which I was in charge of, and it was basically me, a web developer, and an artist, and then the rest of our marketing team also was involved in that. And I was running like a sprint process there as well, and making sure that things were coming along. So there I did more of a producer role. I
see. That's cool. And now what do you do at Ubisoft? What's the process at Ubisoft now for you, roughly?
Well, there was something in between there. I can elaborate on that if you.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah, go for it. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I worked as a producer at Critical Force Entertainment in Kajaani, so a small indie studio making mobile games. And there it was like a team of like 15 people, and a few of which moved to Thailand to work from there. So we had like an offsite team as well, and then running the sprint process there was it was a bit more formalized, I guess, than university. So it was also having the sprint process, Pivotal Tracker, but maybe more organizing what we have in Pivotal Tracker, thinking how it can be useful for the different team members, because you don't want everyone to see the same thing, because there's a lot of information otherwise, which can get really bothersome for just someone who is focused on programming, and they see everyone else's task and they're like, there's too much stuff here, I can't be bothered with using this. Then seeing how we can improve our processes to a certain extent, then retrospectives, reviews, meeting notes, taking a lot of meeting notes from meetings, passing those along, working on our shareholders agreement, which was really interesting experience. And that's the short of it, I guess. And then now jumping to Red Lynx and Ubisoft, there I'm more focused on the day-to-day stuff. Like the high-level stuff is more on our associate producer and our producer, but then I focus on the day-to-day stuff. So it's a lot of emails, because we work with our studio in Kiev together. So a lot of like, these guys need to know about this stuff over there, or they ask us a question over here. We need to make sure that this thing is going along on a day-to-day basis, so we get answers for questions. Then taking care of Jira, because we use Jira for our product management. So I take care of that, thinking how can we make better dashboards here, for example, for the people who use them? How can we improve our processes? Stuff like that.
I'm curious about, especially as times are changing rapidly, and you have the opportunity to be part of numerous independent developers. So do you still have an equity stake in that previous company that you were? No.
I almost finished the shareholders agreement there, but I didn't quite finish it, and I left before it was finished and signed. So I didn't go on to be a shareholder in that company.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I imagine that's going to be a curiosity that we'll see in the future.
Yes.
If folks have are part of numerous independent developers and have numerous equity stakes.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. But yeah, just to everyone listening, if you work on shareholders agreements or stuff like that, ask for help and get a lawyer. Like, don't do it alone.
We've done I think a previous episode with our lawyer, and we basically, the summary of that was always ask a lawyer first. Like, get the lawyer in as early as possible with these.
Highly agree.
Especially something like that, because we've been through that process a little bit, and it's just you need to make sure that, because you're thinking about like all these possible alternate futures where various things happen, and it's like it's just very complex. Yeah, but it's cool. It's an amazing career you've had already from at 26.
Yeah, it's been quite a ride.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking, Mike, what was your experience like in university, like transitioning from university to the working life?
So I mean, I honestly, like, historically, like, a really easy run, because I did my degree. My degree was in game design, and it was a time in the British industry where it was a bit of a boom period, because the Canadian tax breaks hadn't happened yet, so we were still kind of financially, we were basically cheap Americans. That was what British game devs were on the world stage, because we were slightly cheaper than developing in America, and we spoke English and watched American movies, so there was a cultural similarity there. So yeah, it was honestly at that point in time much easier to get work at a big studio. So I, tried to get into Lionhead and Rockstar and Blitz, which is where I ended up at Blitz, and walked into a job basically straight from university. I was very, very fortunate. I had a good portfolio awesome. And stuff, but like I was very fortunate to get a job straight away. So I went in as a junior designer. Usually back then people went in through QA, but I guess someone there thought I was cool, so I got to skip that place in the line, which was great. Went in as a junior designer, and then just worked my way up the ranks. By the time I left, like, working for other people, I was a lead designer.
That's really cool.
So I did a pretty boring, straightforward kind of working hard for 6 years kind of games industry career. Like, and definitely
did having the degree let you skip the QA step? Is it like joining the military, where if you've got a college degree, you get to skip that first step?
I think insofar as it gave me 3 years to like really hone my portfolio and my experience. I don't think the piece of paper of the having a degree, I don't think made a difference, but I think having 3 years where yes, I went into debt, but like I had 3 years where I just didn't do anything but learn the craft, definitely kind of put my skills and my portfolio in a place where I could get that. But no, I don't think it was literally just like having the degree. I think it was the stuff I managed to learn in those 3 years that got me there.
Yeah, I think
it feels like it's changing massively now. It feels like you have much more access. You have, things like work experience, which just, I was on the first year of my course. Like this was back when people were still kind of sniggering at the idea of the games industry needing formal education.
Yeah, I think you touched upon a really interesting point, is that 3 years that you spend in university is like a great time to like hone your skills, work on what you really are interested in, make a solid portfolio and case for yourself. And I think that's really important during university to focus on that, and not just like do the minimum work, because
that's not going to get you the job, is it?
Yeah, because you do the minimum work, then you come out and it's really difficult to get a job at that point. Like if you haven't really put in effort and show that like, hey, I have cool stuff, I've done cool stuff, and I'm a good person.
I'm a professional, right? I'm going to show up. And of course, when you get into industry, you realize very quickly that you're a novice, because you're surrounded by all these people who know much more than you. But hopefully, you have the attitude at that point where you want to learn and you want to kind of pick up those skills. So yeah, it was a great foundation doing the degree. I don't regret it. I know a lot of devs say, "Oh, you don't need a degree," and I think that's true. But for me, it was really useful and gave me a good grounding. So I wouldn't change a thing.
I would genuinely also argue there's a generational gap when talking about higher education and degrees and that type, because I remember
between me and people now, I think you're right. Yeah.
And I mean, and you and folks that 10 years older than you, because I know I've talked to devs who are now in their late 40s, 50s, who are just like I don't think you need a degree to get, like, it's just like, I don't think HR will even look at you if you don't have a degree. And I think that's certainly a difference. Is okay, maybe if you're a dev that came on the scene or, has done some individual work, you might bypass that. But if you are trying to get into the system and getting into a Ubi, an Activision, or even an established company, HR is going to look at that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it helps. It gives you a leg up, but it's not a requirement, at least in Finland. My perspective is the Finnish game industry. So here it's like, it can give you a leg up, definitely, but it's not something that, this guy went to university here, like, let's hire him. No, absolutely not.
I don't think it has the same cultural connotations as, say, in the US, where I've spoken to people where if you haven't got a degree, there are jobs you just don't have available to you, or promotions that aren't available. That's not the case in Europe. I don't think that's the same case. The other really interesting thing is when I talk to students and young people who are deciding to go to university or not, like I'm always surprised by how few of them actually want to go and work at a big studio. They all want to be indies. They all want to be doing their own thing,
which is really difficult.
Which is really difficult. Like most, at least my generation of independent developers, we all went and worked for someone else for years, before breaking off and doing our own thing. And there is no, with the exception of Rami, because Rami is always a bloody exception.
Rami is such an exception. You can't use him as an example in anything.
He's just an irritating person. But with the exception of him, like everyone else, that any indie that the person listening to this has heard of, probably worked for a big studio for a few years.
But I would also point out with Rami that, going back to the cultural differences, Europeans have health insurance built in, and
true.
That is a fundamental difference. Where if someone came out of university, and granted, in the States you can be under your parents' health insurance until you're 26, blah blah blah, but you have to go to university for that to happen. Also, there is a security net there where I would be very, very concerned in telling a 23-year-old or 24-year-old in the States to just go live your dream, because there's no net there. Like, no one's protecting you. Like, and heaven forbid you have appendicitis, and then you're gonna have a $45,000 bill at the end of that. So. And that's not me exaggerating.
This stuff, I don't know how Julius feels, but it baffles me. Like, it's so alien.
It baffles me as well, because in Finland, the healthcare is essentially free.
Right. So I think just making sure that we're recognizing the cultural differences.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's very different.
Is really important.
Yes,
absolutely.
And just to hammer home, my perspective is completely from the Finnish perspective. And in Finland, if someone was like, should I go study in university X to make for game development, I'm like, I would say, like, do you feel that would be more valuable and you can get more, hone your skills more than if you were just at home doing the same things? Because you can essentially do the same things at home. But
I think there's a cultural difference though as well. Like I'm a big believer in kind of university as a place to meet people and to be exposed
absolutely
to stuff.
I very much agree with that.
Yeah.
So when I just want to back this up for a second, because so when your company is and actually I don't know if either of you have ever gone through this experience, but for example, when there was a moment in time where my group was transitioned from being part-time employees to full-time employees, because companies will run that game as long as they can do it. But when we got transferred to full-time employees, we actually, if we had a college degree, we didn't have to go through a secondary interview process. But if we didn't have a college degree, they did. We had to go through a whole other process, background checks, the whole entire thing. No, this isn't.
No,
this isn't
not even a little bit.
No,
okay.
Not at all.
Okay.
No. I mean, definitely with interviews, I've had to do 2-stage interviews, but those have been an interview, like a traditional kind of talking across a desk with someone, and then a second day, which is like me doing the job, embedded on a team for a day, just kind of it was referred to by others as the psycho test, right? Just like make sure that you can sit in an office and not annoy anyone and be a normal kind of person who can work with the team.
Make sure you showered the second interview.
Exactly, yeah. It's all of that stuff. But no, I've never. I mean, background checks in general are something that I don't think, like in America, like you can, like people can do, like I was watching TV and they said that like you get like credit checks done on you and stuff.
Oh yeah.
No,
we do background checks, we do credit checks, we make sure that
It's really weird.
if you have any moment in your past where you may have stolen something, you can't get bonded, which means you can't be around money. There's a bunch of things.
Yeah, it's cultural differences, I think, again, this one.
Yes, a lot so.
I'm just making sure.
I mean, in some jobs in Finland, you'll have like a background check.
If you're like a bank manager or a policeman or a teacher,
I had when I worked at a daycare center when I started.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah,
it's
totally.
Fair enough. Like it makes sense. But for
not for a game
games,
developer,
no.
No, I do you do a FICO score check on them to make sure that they aren't going to try to embezzle money.
Wow,
that's so
but
weird.
Like, but what's weird about that? Just to go into American politics, as said by an Englishman, for a minute, like why? But yours is a country where the main reason people go into debt is medical issues, right? Like that's I saw a statistic that said that it was like over 50% of debt on an individual basis is because of specific, and like lowered credit ratings is because of medical problems.
Well, ask any 24-year-old, they're going to tell you it's because of school. Like, I mean,
well, even so, both those things, like neither of those things are morally bad things. So a low credit rating doesn't mean you're a bad person, right? It just means you either got unlucky with your health or you went to school.
Right, but in
we may have drifted off the subject.
But in both of them, but the logic is that both of those things make you a risk to the company.
Yeah.
Oh, America. Yeah. Oh, America. It's nice over. Isn't it lovely in Europe, Julius?
It is very lovely. And did you know, fun fact about Finland, here studying does not cost you anything. In fact, you get paid by the government to study.
You're even better than the UK. Even better than the UK.
And this is why I love Rami, and I love the what he is trying to express, but at the same time there needs to be a recognition of cultural differences.
Oh, absolutely. There is a very big difference.
And that if you're some kid from Kansas or Michigan or New York or California, you don't get the option. You can. It's a choice, right? Like you choose to put yourself at risk, at personal risk, to follow that path. There's no 500 euros waiting for you every month because you're an artist. There's none of that stuff.
Oh, isn't Europe lovely?
Europe is quite lovely, yes.
Europe is lovely.
Go Europe.
Go Europe.
And now we're going to do a little what's going on at the studio. Julius is with us, so Julius, feel free to jump in if you have any questions during this segment. But Mike, what's going on at the studio?
The thing, what have we been doing? We've been doing analytics. That we've been doing. So we've been deciding whether we want to do our analytics and then starting to implement them in the next thing.
What's analytics?
Analytics. I'm glad you asked, Alexander, in this completely unscripted way. Analytics. Analytics is basically a process by which you put code into your game that when certain events occur, when things are done, it sends a little message back to a server and it tells us that you did a thing. And what you can do with that is you can then graph those events. You can make readings of those events and look at them and make big statistical decisions. You're not looking at, did Bob in Exeter do this? You're looking at, do most people do this or do they do that? Or do people get stuck in this bit, or is this bit too easy? Or do people really like the red cape but never wear the green cape? Those kind of questions. And it's something that, obviously is very fashionable in the free-to-play end of things, but is actually also like happening totally in all other areas of dev, just in a more kind of subtle way, as a way of looking at what's working and making, especially as you start to build games where you want to be updating and patching and solving problems. It's a really useful thing to put in, I think, and a way of kind of seeing if things are working the way you want them to.
So you say fashionable, but necessary?
Yes, necessary. And like in the free-to-play space, you totally have to do it. Like, you have to, if you're going to be selling stuff, if you're going to be building an economy, you need to be doing checks on whether that economy's working, whether people are using things the way you want them to use. In the same way as if you're running a government, you have to be checking to see if the population is working the way you expect it to, and making the decisions that you're assuming it will. So yeah, analytics are massively important in free-to-play. In more traditional kind of premium games, there's the argument that, well, people have already paid, so what do I care? On a cynical level, what do I care if they finish the game or if they get stuck or whatever? Like, I've made my money on a business side of things. But, you know, if I'm building a game and I want people to like it, or I want to be able to make updates to it that make it cooler, or I want to make a sequel that builds on what people liked or didn't like.
Or there's a massive amount of complaints on the forums and you want to test to see if they are...
Is this happening for lots of people? Where is this happening? What are the causes? Yeah, all of that stuff is really useful. And it's something that I'm very aware with previous games we've released, that I can't answer those questions. I can't tell you what percentage of players of volume play our online maps. I can give you some guesses based on certain traffic numbers we have, but ultimately I don't know. I can, you know, and that's a frustration, because it makes me know less about my game and less about how people actually play it and like it. And so yeah, so with the next thing, we're looking to incorporate analytics from day one, which I think will be really interesting. And also the process of doing so has gotten much, much easier over time.
Yep. Yeah, and of course, it's not enough to just have analytics, because if you have a lot of data but you don't know what to do with it, it's like,
exactly, yeah.
It doesn't mean anything. Someone has to interpret that data and see, what does that actually mean?
Yeah, we use it the way I've described it to Alexander. I don't know if you'd agree with this way of describing it, but basically, I can send any event, I can check anything happening, but he needs to work out questions.
Yes,
we need to work out, like, what are we testing? What are we interested in finding out? I can spew out as much data as I want from the game, but yeah, you need to know the question you want to ask. And that's definitely a part of it. And what I found really interesting about the process of coming up with analytics for a premium game is all of the obvious questions are not necessarily the most important ones. You know, when I've worked on freemium games in the past, I worked on some Facebook games a few years ago. It was pretty obvious what we needed to measure. Like, are people buying stuff? What stuff are they buying? What stuff are they not buying? What stuff are they buying and then not using? What stuff are they buying and then using? Like, it's very straightforward, economically driven kind of questions. Whereas, yeah, with this next project, it's like, okay, so how do we measure if this is fun or not? You know, what kind of questions should we be asking? Which is fun. Which is an interesting challenge.
And now it's time for Reader Mail.
Cool.
Reader Mail.
I like it.
Cynic Relief on YouTube writes, currently taking video game design and development, and I've started recommending this podcast to everyone in the program. Great podcast, gentlemen. Thank you.
Do it.
It is a great podcast. I agree.
It's better this episode, I feel. I think that something's different about the way this one's being recorded. Something about the loadout. It just feels better right now. I don't know.
P.S. If you like Stardew Valley, try Starbound, farming, and much, much more. Same publisher as well. Yes. And
you should go back and listen to our one with Donna from the Starbound team. That was a good episode.
Mm-hmm. Got a question, Mike, and then in parentheticals, or Alexander.
That's how I like it. If we could have all questions from now on to the show, emphasize my name and kind of put Alexander just in brackets. Maybe a smaller font. Maybe just tiny little font.
You're also going to love it when you hear what the question is.
Awesome.
Oh, no.
What are your expectations, holistic or specific, when perusing a portfolio for hiring? If possible, what are your red line or must-haves when you look at a modeling, animation, texturing, and any other art portfolio?
Ooh, that's a good question, and I think Julius will have an interesting answer for this as well. I first of all use alliteration. Perusing portfolios is brilliant. I like that. I think in terms for me, because of my background, you know, I've worked on a lot of games in a lot of different genres. I think people will, in terms of my indie stuff now, people see that, you know, I bounce around a lot and want to do definitely the projects we're talking about are all over the place. So I look for a variety. That's a very important thing for me when I'm looking at anyone's portfolio. I want to know that they can do do lots of different styles, not necessarily just one specific thing. Or if they're very good at one specific thing, then they're okay with coming in for just one bespoke project. In terms of art portfolios, I think the two big cliche jokes around art portfolios are spaceships and anime. Every portfolio you look at has spaceships in it, and every portfolio you look at has anime in it. Spaceships I don't have as much of a problem with as a lot of people, because video games often have spaceships in them, so it's fine. It's don't lean on that too heavily, especially if you're sending your portfolio to a company that don't make games with spaceships. If you're sending it to Frontier, probably a good idea, but if you're doing it, if you're sending it to a company that doesn't make games with lots of that stuff in, or that makes games with a different aesthetic, that's not as cool. The thing with anime that's really interesting is anime is, and I love anime, I should say this right off the bat because I'm about to insult it, anime is very cool, and the look of anime is very cool, but it specifically was designed as a way of creating a very interesting, cool, stylized final product with limited time, resources, and skill in terms of the individuals doing it, because they had to make lots of content very cheaply. In the same way as Thomas Was Alone, we use rectangles. Anime is an aesthetic designed to get a lot out of a very small amount of time, which is cool. But what that means is there's a lot of very clever tricks in anime that will make art look better. You can hide an okay artist behind great anime in a way that's much harder to do with, say, life drawing or other kinds of artwork. And that therefore means that if you see a portfolio that's mostly made up of like anime style drawings, a lot of art directors or creative directors, people who are looking at these portfolios, will be a little worried that maybe they're being fooled. Maybe it will look really great, but that's because people are using tricks and clever anime stylization choices much better in portfolios to put in stuff that's maybe less stylized, maybe stuff that demonstrate or a cartoon style that you've come up with, or something that's very personal to you, or a range of things, or put anime in there but put it amongst lots of other things. So I think variety is the big thing, and not leaning too heavily on anime is something else from a graduate that I'd look for. How about you, Julius?
Well, for me, I'm not an artistic person. I don't have an artistic background, so I would not be looking at the technical stuff there, because I don't have the eye for that. But in general, just making sure that all the pieces that you have in your art portfolio represent you well, so that you don't have stuff there that is clearly weak and it's weak. If it's clearly weak, don't put it in there. It's basically like having anything in any type of portfolio or CV for that matter. If it weakens your position in anyhow, don't put it in there. Just leave it out. And like you said, I think variety is a good thing to show that you can do many different things, because at a company, very rarely will you be doing one specific thing for a very long time. You might be doing it for a short burst of time and then move on to something else, because you need to be able to learn new things, because in this industry we're constantly adapting, so you need to be able to adapt, and showing variety shows that you can adapt.
Yeah.
And although I am the parenthetical in this conversation, I would like to note that very recently we went looking for a concept artist, and we had, when all was said and done, over 300 submissions.
Wow. That was a busy day, right? That was a busy day.
Yeah. And we went through every single one of them and looked through it. And obviously you have to do a very quick spot check on every single thing. And there were actually a few of them where Mike and I, because obviously I'm coming at it from, can this person draw good? Where he's looking at it from a far more technical aspect, and we did have some overlap, but there was the top three, I would say, very much came down to Mike pointing out very technical reasons why this person was better than another person whose art I gravitated more towards, mostly because he said, when we get to, and this is a throwback to last week, when we get to the orthographic stage and we're looking at modeling, this person is thinking about. Can you remember how you specifically
I think
said
there
it,
was. I was pointing out some of the cheats, the kind of the stuff I'm talking about. Like I used anime as an example, but there's lots of them. if you look at a portfolio and every single character always has the hands behind the back because the artist can't draw hands, those kind of things where someone's, or where someone is using very expressive brush strokes, but you think, well, what would that character look like if they rotated 20 degrees, and you realize that actually the forms don't make sense, or if underlying anatomy is bad, they've added muscles that don't really exist, things like that. And
the whole brush strokes thing doesn't work when it actually has to be modeled.
It's a great piece of expressive artwork. We saw this with a lot of portfolios where I would point out, like, well, how do the wings attach to that angel? And it's like, well, they don't. It's like, okay, well, we can't model it then, can we? It's those kind of, there's a lot of, if you look at, because all creative work, there are tricks of the trade, there are ways we all do it, we all work to our strengths, and that's a good way of working. But in a portfolio, the person looking at your portfolio is going to know the tricks. They're going to be someone who's more senior than you, someone who's looked at a lot of portfolios, or, in a lot of cases, especially in AAA, did your job for many years, and they're going to spot these problems. They're going to know where you're kind of tricking and cheating and kind of hiding a weakness. So just work around that and work on your weaknesses. I think that's another thing that I know when I was a recent graduate, I was terrified about admitting that I had things I didn't know, because I was still in that kind of I need to look good. But it's okay to have gaps, and if you're a graduate looking for your first job, no one's expecting you to be the world's greatest concept artist. They're hiring you knowing that you're going to improve on the job and you're going to learn. So showing portfolio work, some of the best portfolio work I've seen has been stuff where I've seen iteration, where I've seen, this person got feedback on this image and then tweaked it. And that's nice. And that to me reassures me that I might not be hiring the world's greatest concept artist, but if I'm looking for a junior concept artist, I'm not expecting to. But I am looking at someone maybe who will take direction or learn or iterate over on something.
And I would also add Julius can probably back me up on this. It's the who you know.
Oh, yeah.
It's make sure that while you're in school and you're doing these things, reach out to artists who are in the industry who you admire. And if you ask 10 of them, can you take a look at my stuff and tell me what you see? And just 2 of them get back to you, or even one of them gets back to you, that's a win. That's a massive win.
Like, use your contacts to your advantage and do network.
Yeah, and also, I mean, all the stuff for graduates as well around, just like, don't be an arsehole. Like, be friendly, be known to be an easy person to work with, be known to be friendly. It is just about, and remembering the industry's small, and remembering that you might not get on with the other person in your class who's really good at concept art, but that person's probably going to enter industry in the same way as you do, and you might have to work together at some point. At some point that person might be doing better in their career, and they might be looking at your portfolio. It's a very small industry, and beefs don't work for anyone. So just being a professional, a little bit beyond the scope of your portfolio, but just behaving like a professional while in university.
All right. So from both of you, what is he says that the red lines and must-haves. What is the one thing in an artist portfolio that you've seen that is just your nope and flip the page? Julius, go.
I haven't really looked at a lot of artist portfolios, but I guess it's just like very, very weak overall quality level, and then just be like, nah, there's nothing to see here really.
So they can't draw good.
Yes, they can't draw good.
I love that your stupid voice is an English accent, by the way.
It's not an English accent.
It is kind of, yeah.
It's certainly an English accent.
It's an orc accent.
But an orc accent is an English accent.
Moving on. Michael.
Yes. For me, it really is. The weirdest one is when you look at the portfolio and there's something in it that's offensive. Like something that where, and I'm not talking about kind of being overly prone to offense, but someone who's drawn like something aggressive or sexually violent. I've seen those kind of portfolios handed to me.
Oh, I remember that one.
Always be aware that you're going to be showing your document to a wide variety of diverse people who will have various different cultural taboos, and just make something that you'd be comfortable showing your mum. Yeah,
that's good advice. Yeah.
No, there's definitely
there's stories. Yeah, there's definitely stories, but we're not going to go into them.
No, but there's it's the classic Supreme Court thing of like, I don't know what porn is, but I know it when I see it. Like, I don't know what offensive art looks like, but I know it when I see it. And
and different people have different lines, but just if there's anything in your portfolio where you're like, I bet so and so would be really offended by this, don't just remove it, because that person might be making the decision. Yeah,
that's the good one. I bet someone would be really mad if they saw this. Yeah, don't put that in your.
Yeah,
don't put that in there. If you've got a burning question about games, game development, or just about the complexities of the universe, you can send those questions to us via contact@BithelGames.com. That's contact@BithelGames.com, through the YouTube comments of this show, or on Twitter by pinging @MikeBithell, @Slewinski, or, Julius isn't going to give us any questions, but Julius, throw out your Twitter here.
Yeah, you can just find me by my real name, Julius Fondem. That's Fondem. That's the easiest way to find me.
Google it. Use that Google.
Yeah, or Twitter. If you just write that, you'll find me.
Or Bing. Really? I think he's on Bing as well.
Oh, yes, the Bing.
Ask Jeeves.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Bithell Games Podcast. We can always use your support, so please provide reviews and 5 stars on iTunes, likes and subscribes on YouTube, and positive reinforcement on whatever other platforms you're hearing this show on whenever possible. This podcast was produced by Jonathan Downen, who will be using a heavy hand this week. We'll be back next week. I'm Alexander Slewinski. Thanks again, and get in the last word, Mike.
6.